Visit Avery.com, Avary, for the most up-to-date news and information on Team Avery.
Avery, 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 Avery,
This is The Gala Show. I'm your reporter on the beat, Gala Avery. On this episode, my guest is multi-talented. You may know him as an actor who has played roles such as Lucas Waldenbeck on the USA Network drama Eyewitness, a musician who is a part of groups such as Flamingo Dogs or Sound Days, or as the son of one of the greatest actors of all time, Bill Paxton. But here on The Gala Show, I know my guest as one of my best childhood friends, the man who taught me the phrase, risk it for the biscuit, James Paxton. Hey, James.
Wow, what an intro. Thank you so much, Gala. That was, oh man, I'm so happy to be here talking with you. This is so cool. It's so full circle, you know?
I know, it really is. Like, James and I grew up together, basically. Like, there's so much lore. Actually, I have a little bit of, like, Gala Show lore for you guys. So by the time that this episode comes out, you will have a ton of James Paxton connections in my Gala Show universe. The first one, actually, is that I interviewed Percy Hines White and Ian Nelson, both of which were supposed to star in the adaptation of Neil Shusterman's best-selling novel Unwind. And James, you were supposed to be the villain, or
Roland.
as we call it, the foil. Yeah, Roland.
Yes.
So
I was even designing like a tattoo with your dad for my character.
That's so crazy.
Oh, that project would have been
and it's funny,
so great.
When I talked to both Ian and Percy, they were like, "That's like the one project like that got away."
That got away.
That we all
that
were
that
like,
is. I mean, that would have changed like all of our lives as young actors at the time too. Because I was kind of at the beginning of my professional acting career at that time, and I know Dad was excited about that project.
Yeah, and
too.
your dad was supposed to be the admiral.
Didn't they?
Yeah, we even
you guys
shot like a
something?
promo thing. Oh, I
Yeah.
should dig that up for you.
I've never seen it,
I
but
should-
Dad said he had a great time with it.
I'm gonna dig it up. I'm gonna
Yeah.
dig it up for you. Oh, I remember. I remember on set, your dad and I actually were talking about you and just
man.
like how much like we loved you. So
That's
here we
so
are.
cool.
And then my other connection is that everyone has heard my interview with Adam Rifkin, in which we mentioned Last Train to Fortune, which stars James alongside Malcolm McDowell. And I've since had the opportunity to see the movie. I had so much fun watching it, and I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit more about that today.
Yes, absolutely.
We're
I
going to get into
can't
that.
wait to talk about that.
But before we bring up our topic for today, I have a question for you, James. You and I have a very similar childhood because we actually both grew up in what used to be a tiny little town called Ohio.
Now it's on the map. God, it's world famous
It's
now.
the influencer nation.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Actually, my family actually moved there because of your family. I don't know if you know that.
I do. I remember actually walking around your first house up on McNell.
Yeah.
You know, just off the street I grew up on up there.
Yeah. Isn't
But
that crazy?
wonderful place on the East End. Yeah.
Yeah, but I remember like we went up there and your dad gave my mom like a pasta sauce recipe and she still makes it.
Yes,
like
with the carrots, marsala and stuff.
Yeah,
too.
it's so good. But
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you because I know how it affected me, but how did growing up in Ohio affect you as an artist?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, Ojai is like this it's a special little valley that it just incubates creativity, you know, because it's such a inspiring place, but also so chill, and you don't really feel like the pressures of the outside world there. It kind of like time moves in its own special way in Ojai. And there's so many artists that seek refuge up there, you know, famous potters and painters and actors and musicians. I mean, because you can kind of feel like you're protected up there, but your creativity can still be nurtured.
It flourishes. I
Yeah.
think it's really interesting though, because like what Ohio used to be like when we were little kids up there versus like what it is now, because it still has all of those creatives and it still has all of those. I mean, I haven't been back in years, to be honest. I know you go back.
We got to fix that.
I know you go
gotta
back
come
regularly.
visit.
I
Yeah.
will. I'll come visit you.
I can't be away for too long because
really?
because it replenishes me when I go back there.
Wow,
'Cause
maybe I need to get up
really
there then.
breathe. The air is different, I swear.
But like I imagine it's changed a lot because like when we used to live there, I remember there was that brew pub My parents and I would sit there when I was a little kid, and a tumbleweed would roll by down the main street.
Yeah.
And now it's like everyone knows where Ojai is. And like when those rains happened, like when the La Conchita landslide happened, no one knew where Ojai was. My dad made it out of Ojai, and he went to the dentist in like Hermosa Beach. I don't know why, but he was like, the rain. They're like, where, what, who?
Yeah.
Like, so now it's a big.
It really is on the map. I think, there's pros and cons to it. I mean, unfortunately, like, schools that we went to growing up and I are being shut down because there's not enough kids in Ojai anymore.
What school's being shut down?
Well, like San Antonio's shut down. My elementary school, Matilaha's shut down.
What?
Mm-hmm. Matilaha's merging with Nordhoff. Topa Topa is getting shut down. A bunch of all the.
I'm actually shocked.
Oh
right
no,
now.
it's
like
it's
I'm
really
actually,
sad. Yeah. Oh, I know. It's crazy because Ojai is so on the map that it's become this like second home destination for people, which is really quite of a shame.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't believe that like back then it had enough families to have all those educational systems in schools, and now because it's become so popular, as you said, a second home destination, the families have maybe gone.
Yeah, it's weird because the whole reason mom and dad moved up there, and I think also probably your parents is to be in a place where kids can grow up in a normal, safe environment.
That's literally why
where you can be outside and you can get into anything creatively you want, and it's just really sad that is not so much the case anymore. I know, it's crazy.
Time has changed it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. Sorry to be the one to tell you that. Gosh.
My childhood.
Yeah, I know.
So, I mean, it's okay. Now, as always, my guest gets to bring their topic to the mic. James, why don't you tell us what your topic is and why you decided to choose it?
Yes. Okay. So I was going, when I was sort of preparing a topic and thinking about a topic, I kind of went back and forth on whether or not I really wanted to talk about this, because so often I don't feel like talking about this because it's something I get asked all the time when I do interviews. But I feel like there's nobody I would rather talk about this specific topic with than you, because I think you can, of course, relate to me. And so my topic is what it means like to have a creative legacy where you, and when I say you, I mean one, is pursuing like a career in the same field as maybe a family member, or which is the case with the
with
two
you
of
and
us.
your father and me and my father.
Yes, exactly. And what it means to have that kind of relationship, what we learn from them, what it means to find a place as your own individual artist. But before we get into the topic, it's time for a commercial break.
Hey, thanks so much for being a loyal listener. If you want to keep up with me off mic, make sure to follow me on Instagram at Gala Avery.
And we're back.
You heard it here. We are going to be talking about creative legacies. I have 30 minutes on the clock and our time starts now. So for me, I think the best place to start is kind of, why did you decide that you wanted to become an actor?
Yeah, okay, that's a good place to start. So I grew up, of course, like, I had this interesting upbringing because on the one hand, I was in Ojai, this small town during the school year, but in the summer times, my sister and I and my mom would always be visiting dad somewhere where he was filming. It was around the world, and that was before I even had a concept of what dad did as a career. I just knew it was really cool because we got to travel and meet all these interesting people, and then as I grew up and I started to appreciate just the fact that he was, a consummate storyteller, and that's what drew his passion for acting and for directing, and But to be honest, I never really thought that I was going to end up being so committed to this life myself and following in his footsteps, because I wanted to be a reporter.
Really?
I
didn't know that.
wanted to be like an on-camera reporter. I went to NYU to study journalism, and I really didn't have any plans, to get into acting. But I did love it. I did theater throughout high school and a couple bit roles that were sort of just for fun on sets that Dad was on
Like
project.
Spy Kids?
Like Spy Kids. That's how I got my SAG card.
It's funny, I
that was
actually
Robert
remember-
Rodriguez's idea.
I know.
Yeah.
I remember actually when we went to go see Spy Kids, like one of the big reasons was to see you in Spy Kids. Like when my dad took, and it was like with the 3D glasses,
Oh,
right?
man.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that
It was
on
Spy Kids 3D with the red and
with the
blue,
red and
like,
blue
glasses, yeah.
Yeah, my parents were like, "There's
Yeah.
James." I was like, "Oh my God, there's James."
That's so cool. Yeah, I was 9 years old in that. And I think, but it wasn't, also my mother's a painter. And so I had such a heavy dose of like creative influences between the two of them that, what ended up happening was I went to college and I got E. coli while I was in my
God, I
first
remember
semester.
this. I remember
And I was
this.
like, also kind of really fell into depression. I shaved my head. I had a kid from down the hall pierce my ear. He just shoved it in after class one day.
Oh my God, James.
Yeah. I was going through this crazy, like, oh, I know. It was like, I was like losing my way. Also, I was just completely overwhelmed by just New York City. I was like out all night, like just seeing music and stuff and different things and trying to make like 8 a.m. classes. And it was just, so I eventually, I got E. coli. I was hospitalized at the NYU like student hospital.
Sorry that I'm laughing.
No, it's okay. Please. It's all, I made it through. We could laugh.
You survived E. coli.
Yeah, I made it through.
God, remember when E. coli though, like, was the big worry?
Yeah,
There was like all that E. coli outbreaks and stuff. Now it's like a
it was
distant
horrible.
memory.
You just like, I mean, I lost so much weight that I didn't have to lose at the time. I was 18.
I'm sorry, I'm
So
laughing.
no, it's okay. So I went back to Ojai, took a medical leave of absence for a while. And then the longer I was in Ojai, I got a job, different things. I apprenticed a tile maker in Ojai, learned how to glaze these tiles. I was working on tiles for Phil Collins' house in Malibu at the time. And I was working for like a nonprofit called The Crew in Ojai. Then I ended up working at the Ojai Valley Inn, and pretty soon Dad was like, are you going to go back to school? What are you doing here? And I was like, I was kind of avoiding, kind of coming back to reality. And because when you do grow up in Ojai, it is actually very hard to leave Ojai.
It
back
is.
to our
We say like to escape Ojai.
to escape
almost.
Ojai, because it is so comfortable and wonderful.
Yeah, and also there's so many good memories there that you have, and you kind of could just slip away and forget the rest of the world exists and live a very peaceful life.
Totally.
In Ojai.
Yeah.
Like-
But for an 18-year-old, it's like I was like, I need the opposite of this. But then when I took my medical leave, I was like, wait, maybe I spoke too soon. I need to go back to the
Also, New York.
the bosom
you
of
didn't even
California.
you didn't even go to LA. You went to New York.
Yeah,
Like,
New
you
York.
went all the way.
Where my sister lives now. She's the true New Yorker in the family.
Yeah.
She's had lasting power in that city that I didn't have. Although I love New York, and it'll forever be a special place for me. But
Where you got E. coli.
yeah, where I got E. coli. Oh God. But so Dad was like, you don't have to go back to NYU, but you can't stay here. In a lot of ways, like Dad was a very like, when it came to motivating me, he could be quite tough love and drill sergeant like, which I appreciate about him, of course. But
Well,
so
he knew there was more out there for you than working at the Ojai Valley Inn.
yeah, I think he knew that like that's a pivotal time in which people really figure out what they want to do with their lives. Not to put any pressure on like you have to figure it out that young, but I mean it can really give you a head start if you can find something that speaks to you. And I of course always had this interest in acting, but never had really thought about it. But he said, what, like, why don't you move to LA, like, find yourself a roommate and start, maybe get a job on a film set, and I can try and help you there. and just kind of, get some new experiences. And so I ended up getting a job on Nightcrawler as a PA, and they were shorthanded in the props department, and they needed a PA basically just for props. So I kind of moved in there, and I got to, and I still didn't think I was going to be an actor. But I was working on film sets, and I kind of fell in love with just being on set.
Oh, it's like the most special experience that you ever have.
It's the best
it's addictive.
place ever. It's so addictive. It's my favorite place on earth. And then I started going to night classes with an acting coach named Vincent Chase, who was just like he was Dad's acting coach for many years, but Vince also ran a class in Hollywood on Sunset for many years, and then but by that point he was older and he was teaching out of his living room in West Hollywood, and it was about 6 to 10, 12 kids, at the most every class, and I do 3 times a week, like 7:30 to 10 p.m., 10:30 p.m. And really started because Dad said, like, if you have any interest in this, you have to go study. You have to learn it as a craft. You are like, he's told me straight up front, he's like, it ultimately isn't going to matter, like, that I'm that you're related to me, because, like, if you suck, you suck. That's the thing that people don't understand is like the main reason, like, quote unquote, anybody with a nepo.
Oh yeah, let's talk about nepo babies.
Okay, let's talk about
this
because I'm sure we both have a lot
I have something to say about nepo babies, and I'm sure you do too. Because
I do.
Being a quote nepo baby,
sure, yeah.
Especially with the podcast, I have had a lot to tell me, like, oh, in the beginning they were like, oh, like, she's only here because, like, her dad. I'm like, oh, she's stupid though. She doesn't know what she's just here because she's a girl, and it's like. Right. I worked really hard to get to where I am.
Those voices will always be out there.
They will always be out there. And even, like, before podcasting, I've been working since I was 15 in writers' rooms. And
I remember reading a script you wrote almost 10 years ago now that blew me away.
Yeah,
also.
so it's
you've been
like,
doing this.
I've been working really hard because the podcast people don't always know that, like, how I make my money is writing.
Yeah,
but
true. Yeah.
Nepo baby, tell me.
Well, no,
I'll tell you next.
Well, the funny thing is, like, look, obviously, I think that the main thing that, like, I can take, and I think a lot of people that have wonderful, like, tour de force creative parents can take as I guess a quote unquote advantage is the inspiration and the wisdom and the knowledge that you can learn directly. You have the access to learn directly. Like, we have amazing mentors and role models.
Yeah, we have access to those resources.
Yeah. But the funny thing about the whole Nepo thing is that, this industry is as cutthroat and tough as ever. And there's too much money that's invested in everything, and too much on the line for any companies to really take a chance on somebody just for the fact that they're quote unquote, like, related to some, like, they're a Nepo baby alone or whatever. Because, and so the thing is, you end up, whenever you see, like, these Nepo babies getting a big role or something, or, doing it and getting accolades for it, it's because there's so many more people that are related to people that you will never hear about or see, because they don't got it. They don't have it. They don't have it, or they haven't worked, like, hard to hone their craft and get there. And so, so that's just something that I think is disregarded a lot, but because no matter what, you end up having to find your own way. I mean, I've had to go through, I find the whole Nepo thing is, like, I've never had somebody directly call me that online, but I'm sure it'll happen. But also, it's like,
I feel like it's a disregard of, like, your hard work, just to, like, write off, like, your successes as, oh, it's just a Nepo baby. And here's my issue with a Nepo baby. Okay, you don't hear people calling a 3rd generation pizza parlor a Nepo baby. Right. Like, just because we're in the film industry does not mean that nepotism is a bad thing. I think nepotism and, like, being in a family industry is actually a positive.
Exactly. And Dad always explained this to me, because I opened up, I was insecure about that when I was first starting. I was like, what if they don't really take me seriously or whatever. And he's like, look, if this was 100 years ago and we were shoemakers,
Oh my God, my dad says the exact same thing.
Really? Yeah,
Oh
we might go in and you'd become a damn fine shoemaker.
My dad
because
says
if
I
business.
made barrels, Gala would be a cooper.
Right,
if
right.
I made shoes, she'd be a shoemaker.
Right, and that's real. I mean, that happens in every. I mean, nepotism is in everything. It just is especially highlighted in
like doctors
in the media, in entertainment.
Like you have people whose parents are doctors and they inherit their practice. You have people that are dentists. You have people that are booksellers, or all these different kinds of people. So why is it in the film industry that we focus on nepotism being a bad thing, when in reality it's like that's in every industry? And I think it's a good thing to have a family business.
It is. It's a positive thing because but obviously you have to like be in it for the right reasons, and you do have to do the work. I mean, there are of course cases of where there's clear, blatant kind of nepotism that is
unhealthy, unchecked.
Yeah, unchecked, and doesn't have a foundation of real work underneath,
or talent,
or talent, but that really it happens only in very rare situations these days, like in the industry, and people will probably disagree with that in some on the internet, but it is.
Oh, who cares what they think?
Exactly.
All that matters is here at this table.
It's and look, we all have our own experiences, but it's just like it's a tough one because it's like Dad has been gone for 7 years now, and so most of my career he hasn't been here to help or for me to talk to, and I always need his advice and think about what he would say, and so another reason why I'm even I've been committed to this, doing this professionally for 10 years, and I feel most connected to him these days when I am on set. Wow. And I think about but it's an interesting thing because I'm trying to figure out who I am as my own person, but I'm not. But I also want to celebrate him all the time, and because he is my hero, he and my mother, and my main creative inspiration, and so I never want to shy away from that. But it's like, for a long time you get the whole son of Bill Paxton thing before your name, but I've been working. I got a big break when I was 22 that was totally and my dad couldn't believe I got this job. I mean, he was relieved because, to be honest, he knew how hard he was. Very successful, but he went through so many slings and arrows in his journey.
Even for how successful your dad was, he still had struggle, and I think that's something that people don't recognize.
So much so
is that even when you're at the top, you have to keep fighting. Like you have to keep working. You can't just rest on your laurels in this industry.
Never for 1 second can you. And nothing's guaranteed, and you don't know. And I think in a lot of ways he just didn't want to see his kids like go through the pain of what he went through. And he said, he told me he cautioned me when I first was really studying, and he said, like this is a really brutal way of life, and if you want to do anything else, if there's any doubt in your mind that you don't want to do this, or that there's something else you'd rather do, that instead. This is a too tough, too competitive, too unfair sometimes. It's just and so I think he was at the time, not that he never didn't believe in me. It wasn't that, but it's like you can believe in somebody and you can have a lot of talent in this business and still never get a single shot.
Yeah, because a little bit of it does come to luck.
Just
totally. Like a lucky break, or just that you're in the right place at the right time, or you meet the right person at the right time. And it is so hard, and like you can like work and work and work, and like I have found success, and still sometimes I feel like crying myself to sleep because it's so hard. Like I joke with my friends, I'm like, why am I not just like a housewife? Like, where's my rich husband? I'll start cleaning the floor.
Oh my God.
Like, I'm so tired of this. But you have to just persevere, and you just have to keep going.
Yeah, because, Dad was like, it's a war of attrition, and it really does come down to perseverance over talent sometimes, and luck. I mean, it's a combination of everything. But like I think, even as much as he could believe in me as my parent, as biased as he would be, I think he worried that like, oh, if James commits to this, like this is gonna, he very well might not make it. No matter, it doesn't matter that he's my son.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that he's, And so when I booked Eyewitness, it was like it was a real tangent, like
relief.
Sigh of relief with him. And he goes, "This is a real ticket to ride," meaning like this is, you got to like work even harder now because you've gotten a ticket to the major leagues, and now you really need to go and play and stay in there and work even
Even harder.
And I think part of him couldn't believe it, and that gave me so much satisfaction because I was like, yeah,
because you did that on your own. Then
see that, because I did that on my own, and that was a rigorous casting process. I mean, to say the least. I had 4 auditions for that, multiple chemistry reads and camera test, and meet with the creator, and they tried to cast that role in Canada first, and then moved down here, and it was that was as earned as it gets.
Well, also that the subject matter was very. I remember watching that episode. I watched it with my best friend, my female best friend at the time, and when you guys, like, it's a show with 2 gay guys.
Yes, yeah.
And when you guys started like the first episode getting it on, I was like, oh my god.
Oh, it was so wonderfully written, and those characters were so. I felt so honored to get to portray a character that I had like responsibility to really get right.
I think you did.
Thank you, and I'm so grateful to everybody who's like watched and enjoyed that show over the years. I still get wonderful messages about it, and I'm just immensely proud of that, because that show helped me realize like I am doing the right thing with my life, and Dad got to see that, and it was the last thing he got to see me do.
Wow, that's really special. I'm so glad that he was able to see that, though.
Thanks.
But let's talk about Last Train to Fortune.
Yes.
Because I know, because I just got to see Last Train to Fortune.
Yes.
And when
Thanks
I talked
for coming.
to him, thanks for having me. It was so wonderful. And it was interesting. So I talked to Adam, and he brought it up a little bit on the show that he was doing it. And then when Adam and I went out to lunch afterwards, he told me like the whole story and like kind of conception of it. And I did not know that your dad was originally involved in Last Train to Fortune.
Yeah. So, it's an interesting talk about full circle kind of,
like really full circle.
Yeah.
Because Adam's mom wrote it for some kind of contest.
Yeah, I believe it was a PBS screenwriting competition
Yeah.
that they were hosting, and there was a cash prize.
Yeah.
And she won it in 1987 or 86. I think it was 87. And it was actually what afforded Adam and his mother to move from Chicago to Los Angeles. I love Adam Rifkin. He's just he's
amazing guy,
incredible director and writer, and so prolific. And I mean, he's made some of the most off the wall, bizarre
like
films
the dark
of all time.
Backward with
and
your dad.
Yeah. You got to see this crazy documentary he did too called Giuseppe Makes a Movie.
You know, he was telling me about that. I have to
it's
track that
fantastic.
Down. Yeah,
it's
I have
so
to track that
interesting.
down.
And it's in Ventura.
Oh, wow, okay.
But
well, there you
go. He's so great, but he can also do these like just these films that feel like timeless classics that have like very strong, important messages that are but feel like almost movies that were made in like the 90s. I mean, Last Train to Fortune is a film, is a Western, but it's really just happens to be set in the West. It's really a story about education and learning.
It's a moral tale.
And it's a moral tale, yeah, with Malcolm's character and my own, and both teaching each other something. You know, I play this young outlaw who robs him at the train station when he's an English school teacher who's come over to the Old West to take a headmaster position that was posted in that made it all the way to England and in the paper, and they were looking for somebody to become the new schoolmaster of this town called Fortune. But he's like a total fish out of water, and he's brought up briefcases full of books that he's going to teach with, and my character's he's never read a book, and he's knowledgeable in the ways of the old West, and
he's street smart. One's book smart and one's street smart.
And so, you know, Malcolm's character convinces me to shepherd him the 2-day ride to Fortune with my horse, so that he doesn't know I have people coming after me and everything. And he convinces me because he's going to give me his upfront salary, which they're giving his first trimesters or semesters salary up front to him. And, you know, we both teach each other something, but it's like really topical because, you know, books are being banned still across this country, you know, and being censored and burned. And it's just like, I mean, there still is, there's an attack on education. But the film is very wholesome too. It's very
That's
sweet,
what I loved
family
about it.
friendly.
Yeah.
It's got action, but it's not gratuitously violent or anything. And it does feel like a movie maybe from another time.
Well, it's kind of because it is from another time. I mean, the script
Yeah.
was written in the 80s. And then if we
Right.
like, when Adam was discussing kind of the chain of how the movie came about to
Right.
me.
Oh yeah, I gotta touch on that.
It was originally Lindsay Anderson.
Lindsay Anderson,
was
yeah.
of If.
Oh,
and
incredible director.
He was supposed to direct it.
Yeah.
And then was your dad attached at that point, or was it your dad attached
Well,
after?
so what happened was, this was in the 90s sometime, and Adam had kind of always loved this script of his mother's because it won the award, but then it never really.
Yeah,
there
they
was
said it was
kind
too
of,
expensive to make, and so they made some other movie, but it
Yeah.
still won the award.
Exactly, yeah, and Adam always wanted to get it made, so he had the idea to kind of try to get it made with Malcolm and my dad, who he had worked with on different projects. And they both loved the script, and Malcolm says, well, Lindsay Anderson would be great for this, I'll cool him, and so he got Lindsay Anderson involved, and he loved it too, and he did want to direct it. And so but the story would have been quite different, just in terms of they were at very different age ranges than it ended up being with our versions of the characters. Malcolm was a lot younger and Dad was a lot older than I am now. When
Oh, interesting. So it would have kind of been flipped.
yeah, it would have just there wouldn't have been this great contrast between like this older man and this
Young boy,
who's sort of in his more twilight years, and then this younger
like up and coming
little
thug.
shit-heeled kid. Yeah, thug, yeah. Like street urchin, Old West street urchin outlaw, named Jedediah Dooley. But but then tragically Lindsay Anderson passed away 6 months into them getting this. They were taking meetings, and then the film just kind of faded away. And so sometime after Dad passed, Adam Rifkin and Brad Wyman kind of approached me about we should make this, and Adam always wanted to make this for his mother too, as a wonderful gift to her,
Yeah.
and to honor this incredible script that she wrote. And it was the most meaningful thing that happened was when I was on set. We had been maybe a week and a half into filming, and we FaceTimed Adam's mother, and she wasn't able to visit the set. Malcolm and I FaceTimed her, and she said that it was like when she saw us, in costume, it was like we walked right off the page and out of her mind, into the real world.
Wow.
And it was exactly as she felt like it was always meant to be. And I think it really was meant to be this version of the film that was made, instead of that one. So you never know where a project will start and how it'll end up.
I mean, we've talked about it. You and I have had so many misconnections with projects, and then before we were recording, we talked about my dad's Gala Dali project, literally 25 years ago. He wrote
I
the
know,
script.
yeah.
And Al Pacino was attached, and Adrian Brody was attached.
Yeah.
I'm sure a ton of other people I don't even know were attached. But there's just projects do come. Sometimes they take a really long time, but they do come about.
Yeah.
And earlier you were kind of talking about when you were becoming an actor, how you're trying to find your own thing separate from your dad. But here you are in Last Train to Fortune, kind of stepping into a role that your father was supposed to play.
Yeah.
So did you have any guidance from Adam on what he originally wanted your father to be like in the role, or was it a completely new thing?
Well, yeah, it was,
Because it's kind of a tricky, weird
It is.
situation.
No, that's a really good question, because, I mean, first of all, it's tough to find that line where you want to, become your own Josh Brolin, and him and his dad is an all-time great actor, or like Jeff Bridges. There's these, I want to get to that point too, because I know I have so much to say as a filmmaker and not just an actor. I'm producing my own projects now too, and I produced Last Train to Fortune.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm trying to, because Dad always said, Hollywood rewards the self-starter. You gotta do your own thing, and
You have to be your own biggest cheerleader. You have to be your own, your own entrepreneurial ship. Yeah.
And so it's so I've always been so proud of my dad and wanting to celebrate him and talk about him at any given time, and it's just, but I want to honor him by being by working as hard as I can to do this on my own. And now I literally I've had to do it for 7 years now, literally. But Adam with Last Train, he knew the charisma that Dad would inherently bring to the role.
Yeah.
Sometimes in his early career, a little too big in
Too
projects.
much charisma.
Sure.
Too much riz.
He was one of those guys he was like really a theater performer when he started, and he became this as good as any actor's ever been. But that was sort of later in his like with Big Love and projects like that, A Simple Plan, and some of those are really, I think, his greatest acting performances.
What is your dad's favorite performance?
A Simple Plan.
A Simple Plan.
Yeah.
It's really, really good.
Yeah, that one is so good.
But he has so many good ones, though. It's kind of hard to say. Like Aliens. I love him in Aliens.
Oh yeah,
it's like that's why.
Except
Aliens...
I have a funny thing. See, for example, like with Aliens, he thought his career was over after he did that film because he thought he was so bad in the movie and so over the top, and that he'll never work again, and that he let Jim Cameron down, and he had a whole crisis of confidence after that film, and it ended up being one of his most iconic performances.
Wow, it's so funny because I always tell people like Bill Paxton is what makes Aliens better than Alien.
I would agree with that. Both amazing films, but I would of course agree with
Aliens
that.
Is better, and of course I love him in Near Dark.
Yeah. But so it was So yeah, like so Adam basically was like, just maintain that charisma, but do it your own way.
That's great. He gave
I
you
didn't
the
want
freedom.
to. Yeah, I didn't want to do I've only done an impersonation of my dad once, and it was very, very purposeful, and it was on a show called Agents of Shield, and where I played the young version of the character my dad played in the first season. They're time traveling in the last season. And so I play the version of him in the 80s when he's young.
Oh, that's awesome.
This character named John Garrett. And I studied his episodes, and I was like, I'm gonna make this like creepy for people to watch.
Now.
Oh, you got to see it.
I have to see it.
Because a lot of people had no idea it was me, and they go, God, they couldn't have found a better guy for this. He's like, he sounds just like, and it's like, they're
okay, well, there you go. Here's why.
And that was cool because I had auditioned for that show like 7 times over the years, so it was, And so I'm always riding the line between wanting to do things that connect to him and homage him.
Without being a caricature of him.
But without being a character, or just doing it because he was in, and that's a tricky line to ride, because, of course I don't want, like, I don't need that. I have my own things going, and I don't need to do that, but I do that because I want to. And it might be like a good time to say something that is not really been publicly released, but I have a cameo in the Twister sequel that I finished last year, and that comes out later this year, and it's for the fans. This one is for Dad. This one was not for me. I was on the fence of even doing it. But I think that everybody involved in this sequel, because it's not really a direct sequel.
It's Twisters.
It's Twisters, and it'll help reintroduce the original one to new generations. But everybody involved in this new one is really wonderful and talented, and I think are going to do a really great
sequel.
Great sequel,
or recreation,
and yeah, it's a different story, but I did a cameo in it for Dad and for the fans of the original, and that one was for him, so I make the very conscious decision whenever I do anything like that, but because I feel like I'm connected enough to him. Anytime I'm on set and doing my own thing, I'm doing it. I'm just keeping the name alive.
But also, it was something that you and your dad were able to like bond over because it was a shared thing. And like growing up, like you were able to witness your father do it. And it's very similar with me with writing. Yeah. Like it's something that connects my dad and I. And I'm grateful every day that I get to have my dad as my writing partner. Yeah. And it's something that like, it's so special. It's so hard to explain to people. And like, you're one of the only people that will understand the connection that you have like with your father when they are creative like you. Yeah. It's an absolute, and you've honed your craft too. I mean, we are
technicians too. You know, we know how I know how to turn it on and off with this. And
we definitely do.
I study. They're turning it
There's a timer
off.
Turning it off.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, because I'm gonna ask you a wrap up question, but I'm dying
Sure.
to know, what kind of projects are you looking to produce as you're moving into that?
Yeah, so I've got a handful of projects right now. I've got 2 other features that I've been developing and working on right now, and one of them is very, very gritty and very adult. So because I'm trying to go from very different things. I want to show that I can kind of exactly range, and also it keeps anything ever getting stale or boring. And I want to tell all kinds of stories. So I have got this kind of like gutter trash Shakespearean tale about these heroin addicts.
Oh, really? Okay, so you're really
these
going
unlikely
there.
friends, that I'm working on putting together, and then another one which is more of an ensemble, that kind of with a surrealist element. It's kind of like funny games set at the Thanksgiving dinner table.
Yeah.
And so, because Last Train was like a wonderful, like fun for
it's
all
like a family
movie, and now I want to also show that I can do some really gritty
More like
tales
adult.
that are really,
Yeah.
a little, too real.
Too real. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just like last thing I have to touch on before we wrap up, because I know I had to say it. What is a flamingo dog?
Yes, Flamingo Dog.
Because
That's a good question.
You released this
this
song.
Yeah, recently on my
your
birthday.
birthday.
It's
I
called
loved
Another
it.
Year Older.
I love it.
Thank you so
I
much.
was bopping to it in the car that day.
Really,
I was like,
it's got a nice little bounciness. It's a
no,
simple little tune, but
I
it's
like
fun.
it. Yeah, Another Year Older by Flamingo
Yeah,
Dogs.
I wanted to mention. Thank you for mentioning the bands in the introduction, because I've made music since I was 13, and that's always been my like a huge passion of mine, and it's always been more of a hobby because I haven't made a living out of it like with acting. But I always do it because it's something that you can always work on yourself between projects. You can always I can use it to stay creative and as an outlet. But Flamingo Dog, we switched the name to Flamingo Dogs. I think about 6 years ago, because we had this I won't even go into like our first name, but
Wait, what's the first name?
Oh God, it was called Aya J, and it didn't make any sense. It was the phonetic spelling out of an acronym that stood for All in a J's Work, and it's Jared and James, my friends since preschool from Ojai that I've worked with. He's a great guy and an amazing producer and beat maker and musician, and basically Flamingo, we always did music that was kind of blending genres. Like we always tried to blend things. So we wanted a name that felt like a kind of hybrid, like weird, like new creature. But it was like, because our music is a mix of different styles.
Yeah. It's
kind of alternative hip hop, but now we're doing more dance music too. And now I'm working on solo music that's like folk guitar driven.
I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, I'm gonna release it under Love, Pax, like that's how I sign off as a signature on a lot of things. A lot of people call me Pax or J Pax, growing up as like a nickname. So
yeah.
But a Flamingo Dog is kind of this weird hybrid creature because it reflects the mix of genres in the music. So the mix of animals.
Well, okay, there you go. Because I was bopping to Another Year Older, and I was like, I gotta ask him like what a flamingo dog is.
Yeah. And then really quick, Soundaze, Soundaze is a group. It's literally Flamingo Dogs plus another vocalist, a really talented friend of mine named Dayton Sinkaya, who's a wonderful actor, and he and I kind of share the vocals and write the songs. But Jared from Flamingo Dogs produces all that music too, so it's kind of, but it has such a different sound. It's because like a sister project. It is, yeah. They're both like, they both go hand in hand, but Soundaze sounds so differently because of Dayton's style, and it's really cool. And so those are kind of groups that we're releasing a lot of music this year from.
Oh yay, I'm so excited because I loved what I heard, so I can't wait for more. So
thank you so much.
That's all the time that we have for today. But James, is there any final thought you want to leave the audience with?
Oh gosh, I think I've rambled enough.
I know, now that I've asked you 10 more questions.
Get us started on that whole legacy thing, but I hope that there was something illuminating in there for anybody listening. And you never know somebody's story. Everybody has, this is a little cliche sounding, but it's true. Everybody has their own struggle and their own path, and no matter who who you're related to or not, it's all about just being passionate and doing the work and persevering.
Yeah, and also like I think that's a really good thing to say. Like, be kind to others because you never know what they're going through. My dad always tells me like either they have gone through something or will go through something or are going through it right now.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own individual struggle, and you can't just ever write anyone off as a nepo baby just because we're in the film industry.
You know, I know that's a hot button issue, but
the pizza parlor. No one's ever like calling a third generation pizza
Yeah.
parlor a nepo pizza parlor.
No,
we
I
should
know.
start one called Nepo Pizza.
I think it's just another form of entertainment in a way too. It's an issue that I think people enjoy talking about. So
I think so for
but
sure.
hopefully we added another side to it.
Yeah, it's too Nepo baby.
yeah. Take it from us. No, I'm just kidding.
I am too. Thank you to my guest, James Paxton, for coming on to the show. If you'd like to keep up with James, you can do so on Instagram at This Is James Paxton.
Yeah.
And also all of his music at Sound Days and Flamingo
Yeah,
Dogs
thank
and
you.
Love Packs and everywhere. And I cannot wait for Last Train to Fortune to come out.
Thank you so much.
And the world to see it. So
Thanks,
let's
Gala.
get that
This was
going.
great. That went so fast.
I know, didn't it?
This
So-
was great. Thank you.
I'm Gala Avery, and this has been The Gala Show. The Gala Show is brought to you by Avery.com. This episode was executive produced by Roger Avery and produced by Gala Avery. Music composed by Andy Milburn. As always, I'm your host, Gala Avery. Copyright 2024, all rights reserved. Want to see a movie and want it on film? Why don't you head on down to the New Beverly Cinema, where there's always something cool on screen. Whether it's Grindhouse or a crowd favorite, classic or new release, animation or live action, kiddie or midnight, there is always a movie for everyone. Plus, you never know who will show up in the audience. Make new friends in the standby line, or get your tickets in advance by going to thenewbev.com. 7165 Beverly Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90036. The New Beverly Cinema, where it's always on film.